Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Hope Ropes. I'm Vanessa Azelis, your host. You may know me as your grateful guide, and I share stories of hope, healing, and transformation. And today we're joined by Theresa Piela. How do you pronounce your last name?
Piela, close enough.
Hello. All right. She is a health coach who specializes in chronic illness recovery through a mix of IFS, parts work, EFT tapping, and bioenergetic nutrition, which I'm going to ask you about.
Mhm.
And Theresa has her own powerful story of healing, including healing from diagnoses of Lyme disease with co-infections, osteoporosis, amenorrhea, mold toxicity, early onset ovarian failure, parasites, SIBO, ME/CFS, anxiety, OCD, and the list goes on. I'll pop all the diagnoses in the caption if you'd like, but she is now a guide to others. And she's using all that she has learned to help others heal as well. And she's just such a beautiful soul. So, welcome, Theresa. So good to have
Thank
you here.
you, Vanessa. I'm so happy to be here. Ever since I got to
Yeah.
interview you, I was just blown away by I love the way you speak and share, but I'm excited to come onto your platform now.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Oh, we should even link if you wanted to listen to that one. Maybe we can link it in the caption as well in case you wanted to hear that episode, because we did share a lot about grief, which is was really beautiful. So I always like to start off by hearing your story. This is an opportunity for you to share with us where you came from. Your perfect storm, your story of recovery and how that evolved. So when you're ready.
Yeah, Vanessa, I feel like whenever I try to tell the story, I start to see new patterns or aspects that I couldn't see while I was in it. And like we were talking about before the recording started, so much of the fear and panic and dysfunction that I was living with and living in, I couldn't really remember what it was like to enjoy life, to exist or even have, longer than 10 or 15 minutes that wasn't clouded by symptoms and sensations
Mhm.
and panic and overwhelm and this buzzing feeling. And if I could break it down in the simplest way, it feels like I had three perfect storms. But I knew something was off as early as second grade. I started to feel very unwell. I felt, constantly tired, anxious, overwhelmed. I had stomach pains. I just didn't feel great. But at the time, I thought that was normal. I
Yeah.
had the sense that other kids weren't dealing with that just, from observation. Kids seemed a little bit more electric and vibrant and playful. And I felt like my body, something felt off. And I didn't really have the language or the understanding or the support to take action. So it was almost this mind over matter, just carry on, this, just keep going. That was kind of what was modeled to me, right? Put your head
Yeah.
down, just keep going. And at the time, my full-time job was to be a student, right? I was still very young, but it created what felt like this initial cloud of something's wrong with me. So we'll touch back on this later, but this story, something's wrong with me. I'm different and life does not feel safe. Life did not feel like somewhere I wanted to stick around. And, I think a lot of that goes back to early childhood trauma, which again, I had no conception of, but now understanding more about, the physical abuse from my father, a very emotionally unavailable mother. It just wasn't an environment conducive to healing, but it was my
Yeah.
norm. That was all I knew. So as I progressed into my teenage years, things started getting worse. I think the stomach ache started to turn into, pretty painful, debilitating cramps, really intense constipation. I remember going, 7, 8, 9 days without having a bowel movement and just thinking, well, I guess that's my normal. But what started to stack were, yes, panic attacks, insomnia, and, what used to be kind of a manageable feeling of malaise started to become this. It really did feel like torturous. I felt so disconnected and isolated from my peers. I felt like I was drowning just trying to keep up with my schoolwork and, even waking up in the morning just feeling drugged and drunk, not sure what was going on with my body. So things were starting to build.
Yeah.
Uh, and, again, the mindset was you just push on through and hard work will carry you. And, you're here to be successful. My family modeled that, true success is, either a lawyer or a doctor or something prestigious. So that was kind of, what was delivered to us as an option. So
Yeah.
fast forwarding to college, I was hanging on by a thread, just, I wasn't able to sleep. I was having night sweats. I was having panic attacks. Of course, with this almost this I was acting that I was okay. I would put on this this mask of I'm fine. I'm just a normal college student. But again, that story of something's wrong with me. Why do I feel so different? This question of like, what is going on with this?
Mhm.
Um, and at this point, I was already on Prozac. I guess I glanced over that for a moment, but shifting back to high school when I was really starting to struggle with
Yeah.
insomnia and panic attacks, the option of treatment at the time that I was given was, okay, you have an anxiety disorder and you probably have chronic fatigue syndrome. There's no cure for that, but we'll put you on Prozac. Good luck. So I was kind of sent on my way. And I do think that it stabilized me in the sense of I stopped having extreme panic attacks, but I also became very numb while still
Yeah.
feeling agitated internally, so it was very bizarre. I couldn't cry, I couldn't really connect with emotions, but still felt this internal storm.
I know
So
exactly what you're talking
you
about with
do?
that.
Okay.
Yeah, I just interviewed as well someone else who said the exact same thing, described it like this same it's like you're numb, yet, you know that you should be sad or you know that you should have an and it's you can't access it, and that was my experience as well, so that's maybe something we can come back to, but please continue.
Ah, okay. So, yeah, I think that bought me a little bit of time, like, I was able to start my first year of college. I was actually, I had a year, my freshman year, I think I was sleeping normally ish, kind of normal-ish. But then things started to kick back up. So I ended up getting a stress fracture in my foot. And that was kind of this first little moment where I got some testing done and the doctors told me that they were shocked. My bones looked like I was basically 85, 90 years old, extremely
Wow.
osteoporotic. Yeah, so that was just a moment of, oh, okay, I'm not absorbing something. It's my diet. It must be my diet. So I started becoming a little bit obsessive and orthorexic around food. Fast forward another year, my aunt actually was the person to say, it sounds like Teresa has some kind of Lyme disease or some kind of bacterial infection. Let's get her tested. Maybe that's causing some of these neurological energy issues, sleep issues. And that I'd say that started this chapter that I look back on now and I'm kind of shocked at the can of worms that it opened, but I basically went through intensive testing and, it wasn't just Lyme disease that they found. They found co-infections. They found these other parasites. They started testing me for heavy metals and doing microbiome tests and said, there was a fungal issue, there's a candida issue, and oh, actually, there's a mold issue after testing the urine. So, what happened in that moment is I remember feeling this extreme overwhelm of, oh my gosh, here is proof of how unwell I am. It's not just in my head anymore. Here is proof.
Mm.
And I've been living like this almost my entire life. It was mixed though. It was this overwhelm and also this hope as if, okay, now that we found the issue, now we can fix it.
Yeah.
So there was almost this burst of excitement and readiness to try these protocols that these doctors put me on, which were basically high dose antibiotics, handfuls of supplements, before breakfast, with breakfast, after breakfast, with lunch. Like I had a cooler or not a cooler, like a briefcase of supplements. And in that time, now that I'm looking back, I remember it felt like I had shifted. My identity had all of a sudden become, I'm this sick person with Lyme disease and heavy metals and mold toxicity and SIBO, and I have this anxiety disorder and I have these hormonal imbalances. I'm this sick person and I'm going to fix it. But what I
Hmm.
didn't realize at the time was that this intensity and fear and panic and hyper focus on my symptoms and just doing these protocols was actually starting to alter the way I saw the world, the way I saw myself. I started to become so focused on healing that I was too afraid to really do much of anything that was life-giving. I wouldn't hang out with certain friends if it interfered with my dinner time where I had to take a certain supplement. I couldn't be out too late because that would interfere with my sleep schedule. By the way, I wasn't even sleeping. I was on high dose Seroquel and Ativan at the time on top of these antidepressants, still not sleeping and really quickly declining into the state of just panic. Panic. I was having panic attacks. Everything overwhelmed me. Sounds overwhelmed me. Even the feeling of a specific texture of a shirt I remember could send me into this state of just total breakdown, tears. I lived there for quite some time and I saw practitioner after practitioner, which just kept giving me new protocols. It was maybe shifting from, well, let's stop treating the Lyme. Let's really focus on the parasites. Well, actually, let's cut out sugar, dairy, gluten, soy, everything. Let's put you on a GAPS diet and we're just going to focus on the mold. And I did that for years, probably about, 10 years straight until I got to the point where my digestion was so bad. I basically lost all motility. So my belly would swell. And I now understand it as a toxic megacolon. Have you heard of this? Where the food just basically sits in the colon, fermenting, filling up with food and,
Yes, yes.
yeah, creating similar to someone who is hungover from all of the alcohol and ammonia that's produced. It's really
I
intense
know
to
what you're
experience.
describing, I just didn't know that's what it was called because I've
Yeah.
felt that, yep.
And I think people, even if they miss a couple days without having a bowel movement, you kind of get an experience of it where you
Yeah.
just don't feel great. Your thoughts might feel a little bit more serious.
Mhm.
You feel more sensitive. You feel more reactive. You feel exhausted. So I think I hit a breaking point where I decided, okay, I need to, I'm not absorbing or digesting or moving food through me. I need to do something drastic. And this was after trying so many of these diets and, from everything from AIP to fruitarian to specific carbohydrate diet, low FODMAP diet. Like I was trying it all, so desperate to find a solution.
Same thing.
Eventually you tried, yeah, I think there's a lot of overlap. Um, Eventually I switched to the Elemental Physician's formula, which is basically like a pre-digested formula,
Yeah.
and I was, again, excited. I think with every new protocol, there's a little part of me that would get excited thinking, "This might be it. This might be the thing that will help me get my life back,"
Mm.
only to find myself completely heartbroken and let down when it didn't work because I did a month of this, elemental formula. It's basically a protein shake, amino acids, a little
I
bit
know
of fat.
exactly what it is. My son
Okay,
was
yep.
on it for a year.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
a year. Okay,
Yeah.
wow. Well, now I have questions about that, but
Yeah.
to not make my story any longer than it needs to, I was still having severe reactions while on that. I would s After drinking I think I broke it down to, like, 6 or 7, sometimes 8 shakes throughout the day. Even after drinking 1 shake, my belly would swell up, I'd get really dizzy, really nauseous, and I think that was kind of the probably the strongest experience until my later storms where I started to feel this deep desire to not wanna be in this world, so like, I was begging to leave the world because I didn't understand, I thought if anything, the physician's formula, the elemental formula, that would at least keep me alive and I'd feel okay, I wouldn't have the endotoxin issues, the fermentation issues from real food, which I craved, but I remember just kind of losing it, I just I was a shell of a human. Nothing excited me, nothing brought me joy. I I spent most of the day crying. I wasn't working at this
Mhm.
time. I was, kind of just existing. Had enough calories to keep me alive, but it wasn't anywhere close to the life that I envisioned. I got desperate again to try something else, and, it was actually another family member who recommended, hyperthermia. Have you heard of this?
Yes, yes, I have.
So they raise the body temperature to 107 degrees. They hold it there for 4 hours. You're sedated while they're basically IV antibiotics. The idea is we want to nuke the Lyme disease, and bring the body to a temperature where we can just kill off as much bacteria as possible, and then kind of give the body a reset. So I feel lucky that I had access to something like that. I did 2 treatments. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks while still eating the elemental formula and then some pureed foods at that point. Did not realize that I would come back from the hospital feeling basically half dead. Could barely lift my body up, couldn't string together a sentence. It was brutal, Vanessa. I thought I had reached the breaking point, but that was this moment. It felt different in the sense of there was a peacefulness to it where I just said, "You know what? I feel ready to die. I feel like I'm half dead. Okay, this is it." And I'm so grateful for that moment because that's when I stopped fighting. And that's when
Mm,
I
mm,
stopped
mm.
researching. And that's when I stopped having this almost delusional hope that a doctor would have like the perfect protocol and diet to save me. And I kind of just had this. I'm sure I articulated it different in the moment, but now I look back and it kind of feels like I just said, okay, if this is it, if I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here. I was 79 pounds at the time. I kind of looked like ET. My arms were, pencil thin. My belly was fully round and distended. Lost my eyebrows. My teeth had turned gray. It was it was brutal.
Oh my God.
But I had this thought of, okay, if this is it, I don't want to waste the last several months of my life in misery. I don't want to just keep being the sick person. I want to find some joy while I'm here. I want to laugh again. I want to celebrate something. And I think something in that experience, it was almost like you talk about this hope rope. I had this awareness of, oh, I feel different. I just had a stretch of time where I wasn't hyper focused on how awful I felt or how tired or sick I felt. I had experiences of seeing something beautiful like a sunset, or even I remember crows flying overhead and just having this moment of, wow. And that planted the seed of possibility where I started to play around with this idea of, maybe the healing that I'm grasping so hard to find is not actually in a protocol and being more rigid and taking more supplements and getting more IVs and doing all the things. Maybe there's something else here. And at about the same time was when I started to get really interested in EFT tapping. And I was working with a coach at the time. I met with her weekly. I feel like I do owe my life to her and, the role she played at the time. But it really started to help me honor the stories I was living in
Mhm.
while also
Yep.
making space for something new. So it wasn't this bypassing of, just pretend you're healthy and regulate your nervous
Yes,
system and everything will heal. Because I tried
yes.
that. I did DNRS right before going to the hospital for the hyperthermia, and we could talk more about that. But it showed me that yes, there is something beautiful about, the gratitude and elevated emotions. But if we do so at the cost of suppressing what is there and trying to bright side and just trying to hurry up and feel better, we are creating what I feel like is this like festering wound that gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And we're actually not healing. We're just we're just pretending. But though that starts to come out in moments of rage and moments of total overwhelm when we just bury the pain with the attempt to just hurry up and feel better. So
I'm
I
so glad you brought that up, Teresa, because that is probably the most common theme as I'm interviewing. I've interviewed quite a few people the last 2 weeks and all recovered, and we all share something in common, is we all
yeah,
came to this place of acceptance and
yeah,
surrender. It's
yeah,
saying, you know, stop trying to fix what's not broken, and can you be
Mhm.
with what is here now? And
Yes.
in the right?
Yes.
And in that allowing, we made space. We made
Yes.
space for something new to grow. And, like you said, kind of, yes, there's elements of DNRS that definitely started my healing for sure. And it was the awareness of maybe I'm not broken. It's a survival response. It was all of, I do love visualizing, but I was just shoving all the emotion down. And then actually new symptoms started as I was doing, the typical brain retraining. And that's actually funny enough what led me to the emotional work, EFT
Ah,
tapping, journaling, grief work, somatic work, and started to evolve. So I love that you said that because yes, there's a time for elevating, 100%. But there's also a time for being with, for allowing the emotions, for grieving, right? That's what gets us to the place of acceptance. That's,
mhm,
what you described. And when we stop trying to fix, right? Like we kind of plant the seeds for something to grow, right? How can something grow if we're fighting everything? So it's I mean, just I love how you share that, and, like, I just wanted like, felt myself tearing up as you're telling just how much you struggled, because I can relate to that so much with regards to just being stuck in a bed, and when you said, you came home half dead, and you said, "I'm okay with this being the end."
yeah.
That is where I was at too. I
Yeah.
was like, it was just this surrender, full surrender.
Mhm.
Right? But it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that we gave up, so to speak,
Mhm.
because you can have surrender and acceptance while holding hope and making room for something to grow. So sorry to
Mhm.
cut you off.
No,
Continue on your
Vanessa,
story.
I'm so glad because I sometimes get a little frustrated in the wellness space because there is this idea going around. It's like you heal your nervous system, you regulate, and then boom, your symptoms go away in a week. And I'm not saying that's impossible. I think, I believe the people that are sharing these success stories. And I think DNRS even has some amazing success
Yeah.
stories. But I think what's important for the people that maybe are feeling like they're not healing correctly or like there's something wrong with them. They're trying to do all the nervous system work, yet they still have symptoms. I do think the missing piece then is not just elevating, it's like you said, can we actually be with our symptoms and not try to fix them? Can we be with our symptoms and not actually panic or be afraid and just get curious and tend and be very loving and patient? We don't have to like them. We don't have to pretend we like them,
Exactly.
but we can just
Exactly.
yep, be with what is. And I think in that space, I really do see the magic happen. And yeah, it's cool to talk to other people like you and,
Yeah.
other people in the wellness space that feel that similar kind of it's like this subtle nuance of, okay, like we're still allowed to regulate. We're still allowed
Yep.
to use these
Yep.
tools. We're still allowed to shift our state when needed, but we don't want to skip the most important part, which is allowing. So, yeah, now that I look
Yes.
back over my journey, I can see so clearly that I kind of like the suffering was a gift because it became so painful that then allowed something else to come in where it was actually there's another option. You can be with all of this pain, but you don't have to add suffering to the suffering. You can kind of be a witness
Yes.
and move through it in a more neutral way. And even, with certain body sensations and certain symptoms, they are not easy to move through, but they're a lot easier to move through when we are just letting and trusting, letting the body do what it does and trusting, which can be tricky when you don't really have data points of, the body getting better, especially for
Yep.
people that
Yeah.
feel like they've been kind of at this low point for years and years. But yeah, it's almost practicing suspending disbelief for a moment and just even playing around with what would it be like to just be curious
Yes.
about this moment. So, yeah, I think I was able to start experiencing more moments of awe, more moments of wonder. I was starting to experience more moments not hyper focused on my body, and in that time frame started to feel a little bit more energy come back, feel a little bit
Mm.
more function. It definitely was not linear, but I feel like all of the protocols and supplements, letting those fall away and just thinking, well, what's my intuition guiding me to?
Yep.
I actually ended up doing the carnivore diet for quite some time, which I wouldn't recommend to most people, but I do. I look back now and I see it as it really stabilized me. It really revitalized something
Yeah, that's
in
so
my body.
interesting because we've heard a few
Mhm.
stories about that in the community, um, where especially when, people were in similar conditions to yours, that was, one of the supports. That
Mhm.
kind of moved the needle from a nutrition standpoint. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be something to it. And obviously,
Mhm.
this is never medical advice.
Mm-mm.
But again, it's just being curious. So, all right, so you're on kind of started this carnivore diet, you started to get more energy, you're
Mhm.
starting to kind of be present with what is in a
Yep.
sense. And then what?
Mhm. Then, with more energy coming back, I mean, this might help some people that feel like they're still stuck in the research protocol, fix it mindset. I started thinking about what I would be doing if symptoms were not controlling my life. So, I mean, I was still very low energy, very I wasn't quite functional, but even laying in bed, I would draw, I would paint, I would listen to music and sing along, just for the heck of it, just for the joy of it. I started writing postcards to family members and friends just to like have something that felt meaningful and fun, a distraction. I mean, the simplest thing, watching comedy was incredibly helpful, Vanessa, just to have something to
Yes.
to bring some liveliness and comedy back into my day. And again, I wasn't hyper focused on my symptoms. I wasn't hyper focused on how I felt. Buying myself a little bit of time, but also it felt like I was finally able to connect back with reality again, because
Yep.
being the sick person with every waking thought a measurement or a judgment on my symptoms, or kind of rating myself. Am I better than yesterday? Am I worse than yesterday? Is the bloating worse than yesterday? Is the fatigue worse? Is the brain fog? To shift out of that created again this, like, it almost exposed this capacity of what it would be like if I were to be healthy. And that was what started to bring back the hope naturally, because I remember hearing, you got to believe you're going to heal or else you never will. And then I thought, well, I don't think it's possible. I guess I'm never going to heal. So anyone listening that feels like, they can't fake it, they can't pretend that they believe it. You actually don't have to believe it. Life is going to give you evidence, and then you don't have to believe it. You'll just have the data points that the
Oh,
body is literally
amen.
built to heal.
I completely agree, and I get that question all the time. What if I don't believe? Everyone says I have to believe 100%. And I will say,
Mm.
most of us don't. Most of us who've recovered
Mm.
didn't believe we could recover,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
and not yeah, exactly, and I think the wellness space, especially on Instagram, I love it. I love the fact that we can connect and meet other coaches and, share and deliver these hope ropes, but I also do see these claims that add more fear and more poison into people and, create more of that desperation and hopelessness, and, they think there's a right way to heal,
Yeah.
when really it's going to look unique for each person, but with these maybe
Yes.
commonalities. Mhm.
Exactly, right? It's unique to you and there isn't just one way to heal, right? And I think that generally it is about cultivating safety and the capacity to be with everything, the emotion, the
Yes.
sensation, the
Yeah.
part, the belief, the thought.
Mhm.
And with that safety being cultivated and also living as if healed, bringing in elements of life that are
Mhm.
there because as you said, we get so focused on healing, we forget to live.
Mhm.
And just like you, was watching like Friends on repeat, The Office, like funny things. Just it says, well, what can I do? what
Yes.
is possible here? Getting curious
Mhm.
and not allowing the diagnoses or the symptoms to be my identity and my life. So
Mhm.
I love, we're so aligned. Keep going,
Yeah.
Theresa.
Well, and Vanessa, when you were telling me your story, I mean, the whole time internally, I was just thinking like, yes, yes, not to say I know what your experience is like exactly, but these like kind of like it's it's almost like the arc of an interesting story, right? Like, things are getting sticky, we're starting to feel all of these things come up, we think it's this way, and then life turns us that way, but then to look back and realize, okay, there's,
Yeah.
a lot of it does now it feels like such a gift. It feels like the redirect I needed because I understand now I was living in such a stressed, panicked, suppressed way that of course my body was getting sick because I know now I'm not meant for that. I never was meant for that. That was just what I thought being a successful human was. So now I feel like, okay, there's definitely a lot of pain to look back on, but feeling like it made this life possible, a life that feels gentle and creative and um on purpose and working with people and connecting with people in a way that really feels like something I am meant to and want to be doing versus what I should be doing, which I think again that there's a lot of commonalities with like I should do this because this is what's going to heal me. I should do this because this is what the doctor recommended or this is what the naturopath recommended versus okay, what can I do? What feels like the pull, feels like the call. So I started getting some energy back, was able to shift off of a carnivore diet very, very slowly, more towards what I it's a framework I use now, but I'm not prescriptive. I believe that people thrive in wildly different ways, and it's more about tuning into what the body wants and taking the stress out of it. Because
Yes.
as we talked about, so much of the the stress and panic around food is actually what's exacerbating the reactions. I know in critical conditions like, both you and I were in, yeah, there's a time and place where you can't just eat pizza and, grab a beer with a friend. The body's probably
Yes.
not feeling capable or, that doesn't feel safe. But there's also, I think there's a beautiful point where a lot of people realize that it's so much more about the state that we're in than it is about the food, and that it actually doesn't have
Yes.
to be a restrictive diet because that confirms more of the fear and the
Yes.
rigidity. So, yeah, I mean, it's there's a spectrum, right? Like, yeah, I never wanna sell it like, "Oh, just eat whatever and regulate yourself and you'll be fine," but for people listening, being open to the possibility that eventually you will be in a place that food doesn't have to be so controlled or manipulated. You can trust your body to eat and crave what it wants. You can, even have less than ideal foods. And I'm not saying like, just get a bunch of junk food and, and, food that maybe is not ideal long term in large amounts. But even then, I know you talk about
Yeah.
even with less than ideal foods, if you're in a state of trust and a state of meaning and purpose and I mean, really it feels like, yeah, being in your life in a way that you are meant to, in a way that is aligned, the body can handle so much more. But what really helped me was switching to more of this initially a bioenergetic approach, which was more about like how can we create more energy in the body, not by following a rigid diet, but by really providing the inputs that allow the mitochondria to thrive. So, yeah, there are
Mhm.
specific micronutrients and macronutrients that allow that to happen. And I think that's what got me from just a meat based diet to all of a sudden starting to regain some intestinal function, regain some motility, started to put some muscle back on, started to regrow my eyebrows,
Wow.
and I think it had to be in tandem with the emotional work because,
Yeah.
like you've witnessed so many times, if we try to do any kind of protocol or diet when we're still in that fearful state, it's almost like the body can't receive it. So when we
Exactly.
finally allow and surrender, yeah, then whatever we feel called to, it can actually work in the way it's intended. And I think that's why a lot of the more restrictive diets do fail because the client is just so scared and it feels like they're being cornered into it, right? Like no one wants to eat a rigid, narrowed
Yeah.
down diet or the elemental diet. I don't think anyone's excited to do that, but if we were, maybe it would have a very different effect. Yeah, so that really over the years, I started to be able to run again and strength train again. I started singing, I started reconnecting with friends and being able to just exist in the way that felt like I wanted to. I wasn't bedbound or housebound and really started to rebuild. It took time. It took a lot of time. And I got whacked down again with long COVID actually. And that stuck with me. Gosh, symptoms were pretty bad for over a year, but the difference was that I already had experience. So it almost felt like a gift to not feel so, not feel so fatigued and so awful all the time, but to be able to go through that level of suffering without the fear. It was
Mm.
almost like a little checkbox of, "Okay, like, I learned what I needed to learn from that long stint of dysfunction," and started to be able to find tricks and tools, both mind, body, but again, more nutritional tools, supplements that really helped my body get out of it, so that was an interesting experience, wouldn't sign up for it again, but I'm
Yeah.
really you
It
have that.
happened to me too, right? So I had healed and then same
Oh,
exact thing was COVID coinciding with my dad passing away at the same
that's
time.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I went through the same thing. It's kind of had, that following year of said, and I didn't have the fear either. And
Mhm.
what was the wild part. It was saying, "But I know what this is. I
Yeah.
know what this is. And even though I had new symptoms even, I was like, "I know what this is." And I never, I almost rejected the diagnosis of long COVID. And I even said to my cardiologist at the time, I said, I know this is my body in survival again because I just lost my father as well. So it's like I lost
Yeah.
my safety. And
Yeah.
then now my body has this virus it's never had before. This weird, let's be honest, it was weird. Okay.
It
Um,
feels like nothing like no other
nothing,
virus.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other podcast. Um, but that alien invasion, gave me the opportunity to use the same principles and tweak them. It's like I
Mhm.
brought in more emotional work. I started to really check in my life what wasn't aligning at that time and kind of, just kind of reevaluate and do things differently the second time around. And it expanded me in ways I never thought. Right?
Yeah.
What about you?
I echo that completely. It almost it does feel now again like another gift to s to utilize the tools that we had developed and accrued from the first or
Yeah.
second perfect storm and to yeah, I see it almost like it unearthed, deeper levels of the grief and the pain that maybe I had just touched on the first round or didn't quite have the capacity to even really process because I was still j like, kinda learning how to walk again, learning how to digest food again. I wasn't really able to think about my childhood and, some of the loss and heartbreak with my parents and my siblings. I wasn't quite ready. I didn't quite have the energetics of the space, so yeah, with COVID, it was another, breakdown to rebuild moment, but with almost like a bird's eye view. This sounds kinda crazy as I'm talking about it, but I guess maybe you can relate,
No,
like,
not crazy at all. I'm
it
like, "Yeah, I know exactly
okay.
what you're talking about."
Yeah,
Yes.
in a way, it felt similar to what people describe with psychedelic experiences, where you have this awareness of what's happening, but you're no longer the victim in the story. You have this bird's eye view in the sense of, "Okay, I have a chance to do things differently," like you were saying, like, "I don't have to be afraid this time." Yes, my body is physiologically in survival mode, how can I support it if I don't have to speed its healing up, if I don't have to fix it, if I don't have to micromanage? How might I move through this in a way where I'm not abandoning myself to just be positive or be happy? So yeah, I think that was a another layer of my feels like my like earth curriculum of, learning how to be a human, but also what I can then help others with when they maybe are in states where they're still caught by the fear, or they're still in the why is this happening to me? What supplements do I need? What am I doing wrong? It
Yeah.
helps me straddle both worlds to know, okay, it's not, you're actually not doing anything wrong. There's still more to learn here, and there's still more surrendering, which we can't force, but more confirmation that you are just where you need to be, and that part of the healing process is letting it take the time that it needs to, and building that muscle of surrender. And Vanessa, your work too added a completely again more of that deeper unearthing, because I knew there was pain, and I thought I had processed it, but something about the way you teach and the way you phrase things, I started to have these aha moments of, oh, even my fear isn't something to be afraid of, because I still had this thing of, okay, I'm not going to be afraid of my symptoms. I'm not going to, stay stuck in these limiting stories of being a sick person. But, my grief, like I don't really want to feel that right now. I'd rather stay in an elevated emotion. I didn't realize I had kind of cornered it off, and by doing that, I was still limiting my ability to feel that full spectrum of joy. So when I started turning towards the grief with that curiosity and acceptance, and even, yeah, like a sweetness and like a
Yeah.
willingness to feel what was there, that I feel like post COVID with more of the grief work really brought me to a place where I don't think I'm done. I don't think we get to a place where it's like healed, but
No.
I'm done fighting and feeling afraid. So it feels like this gentle, soft landing pad of, okay, whatever the next challenge is, I can handle it. Whatever comes
Yes.
next,
Yes.
we have the strength. And, it's not here to punish us. It's actually here to help us grow and then share what we've learned. So, yeah,
Oh,
that's been a,
yes, like, speak
yeah.
louder, because you know what? I think that there's just so many people out there who are expecting the end of healing, like you said, this finish line,
Mhm,
and then living, carefree for the rest of your life, and then,
mhm.
you and I have had multiple perfect storms,
Yeah.
and, we know we've gotten to a place because of the way that what we've been through and the way we've learned to respond, that we know that whatever happens next, because shit's gonna still keep happening, guys.
Mm.
It's life will
It's
always
life,
be
yeah.
lifing, right?
Yep,
Always.
yep, yep.
And my I think the greatest gift that I've received from this journey is exactly what you said,
Mhm,
that whatever happens, I'm going to be okay. I'm gonna
mhm,
support myself through this. Like, that is it, and that's what I want for every single person who's
yeah.
listening, is for you to get to that point that even if, right, this
Mhm,
this person, I suffer this loss, or this happens, or this experience is here, this symptom, this whatever it is, I'm gonna be okay.
mhm.
I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And that, like, you're a walking testimony of that,
Mhm,
we both are. Every person on this channel is. It's like that knowing and that trust that it may be uncomfortable. I don't have to love it. Yeah, it might suck, but I'm okay. I'm safe. I can weave in safety here. I can weave in support
mhm,
here, right? I can
mhm,
evolve with this.
mhm.
That's the most empowering thing, right? You take your
Yeah.
power back from that sense.
I love framing it in that empowered sense of, who are we becoming because of these hurdles and challenges? What's it bringing up in us? Like, what traits are developing that would have otherwise remained dormant? I can't remember who first told me about this idea, but there are certain seeds that remain dormant until they're scorched by forest fire. And then, after the forest fire, we get these massive blooms of plants that
Wow.
wouldn't have otherwise blossomed, right? Or they never would have germinated. And I see
Wow.
the healing journey similarly, which, yeah, again, it takes the fear out of it. Like thinking, okay, maybe there's going to be another alien virus to come and
Yeah.
knock us down, but if we see it as, okay, we'll make it through, we'll learn
Yeah.
something from it. It's happening in our
Yeah.
favor. It's not punishment. It's not that we're healing incorrectly. It's life, like you said, lifing, and we'll make it through. And I feel like that's the nervous system work that people really, well, I don't wanna put any prescriptions, but I feel like that's what people really need, because
Yes.
there's still the story of, like, yeah, heal yourself, get to a finish line of your nervous system regulation, and then your symptoms will go away. But it's
Yeah.
more about this capacity. Can we create so much capacity to meet whatever is here, and
Yeah.
then know that that safety is that common thread, and, we will be okay.
Yeah, and you described that beauty from ashes, right? Like that
Mhm.
as you were
Yeah.
talking about the seeds, that's just, the beauty that comes from the ashes.
Mhm.
Even, I mean, I don't, I'm a faith person, I guess faith-filled person, but I always think about God uses everything. Like,
Yeah,
literally
nothing is
nothing is
wasted.
wasted.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that's something that I had to remind myself as well, that it will be used, right? And in our situations, we're clearly using what we went through, and not only changing our lives in the way that we do things, but also giving others the opportunity to change theirs.
Mhm. Yeah.
So beautiful, Teresa. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes
So
it feel
bring
worth
us
it.
to yeah.
Mhm.
So bring us to kind of so you overcame long COVID,
Mhm.
maybe got some new did things differently, and then where did that bring you? Or where are you now even?
Yeah, I'm feeling really good now. I think this is the, like, healthiest, happiest, and most at peace I've ever felt, and I
Mm,
never thought that was possible because, again, when I look at my childhood, I didn't really have an experience of, like, true safety or peace or relaxation, so it was kind of relearning it as an adult, but these days I feel incredibly lucky. And like you were saying, like, nothing feels wasted, nothing feels like punishment. It felt like the school I had to go through to now
yeah.
do what I do, and I wake up and I feel so excited to talk to people like you, so excited to check in with my clients, and to know deeply that, it's possible for anyone. It's not like I did anything special. It's not like I have a secret trick or like a secret supplement. I mean, yes, there are certain things that really did help me, but I know it's available for everyone. So yeah, these days I tend to blend. I mean, yes, a lot of what helped me, but blending the EFT, the parts work to really start to unearth the beliefs, the stories,
Mm,
and the feelings that are still hooked onto the fear, to start to gently melt those, not by forcing, but by allowing, because I think the body really does want to process things. And
yeah.
then, in specific cases, very gently bringing in more of the bioenergetic nutrition, like especially with long COVID, I have seen the most amazing recoveries bringing in something as simple as vitamin B1, helping people with like
Interesting.
bed-bound chronic fatigue will slowly ramp up some B1. They're walking again. They're exercising again. They're able to go up and down the stairs, which maybe for months they couldn't do. So I see this balance of that the nutritional support, the supplemental support actually helps the nervous system support become easier,
Yeah.
and vice versa. Like the more we can do tend to ourselves and create that surrender, create that space, then the body can actually receive the supplements and the food we're bringing in to then hopefully get to the place where you can be eating whatever you want without the rules, without the fear, without the restriction, without the diets, and really just
Yeah,
trusting
yeah.
trusting the body. So,
And you
yeah,
said
I've been
something really important too that I wanna highlight for anyone watching. Teresa, and those of you who know me, I say this all the time, is the things outside of ourselves, like, the supplements, right? Or whatever it is that we're using, they're supports.
Mhm,
It's okay to support yourself.
mhm,
We're not looking at them as the fix. And that's exactly how you framed it. You're like, I supported myself. I brought in a support. And healing isn't so black and white, right? And so just being cautious as to those people who say, I have the perfect protocol, I have all the answers, do all of these and you're going to heal. And then when it doesn't happen, you feel like they make you feel like it's your fault because you didn't do it right. And we're saying it's not black and white. And what if it's okay to bring in support, right? Like, what if it's okay? And I think there's a lot out there who are very, very, very black and white, or who are bringing in supports and feeling bad about it. The way that I see it is, if there is, something supporting you while you're doing the work, right? They can work beautifully, like a nice marriage, right? A collaboration. But if
Mhm.
you are just accessing the supports of certain things outside yourself and pouring all of your hope, expectation in those supports, then I invite you to kind of reevaluate, right? Like,
Mhm.
what's the story you hold with these supports?
Yeah. And not getting, like you said, not getting too attached to, like, the one silver bullet or the one thing, but
Yeah.
we have all these tools, like EFT tapping, yep, it's a tool.
Yep.
Grieving and the work that you do and the myriad tools that you use, more
Yeah.
tools. Food, also a tool. Light
Yeah.
exposure, like movement, lymph work, all tools, and I know some people, they get paralyzed thinking like, "Well, which ones are the most important? What like, if should I do more?" And that can cause
Yes.
a lot of
Oh my
panic,
goodness.
and
Yep.
they just feel like, well, their whole life is still built around healing, but I think, again, the nuance is letting the tools feel like freedom. As soon as they start to feel rigid and confining, maybe it's time to back off and, like you said, look at the story because,
Yes.
we can use tools at different times. We don't have to stack them all.
Yes.
Simplicity seems to win because, again, back to the nervous system, like if the nervous system starts to perceive more signals of safety and more signals of beauty and more signals of connection and possibility. We want our healing protocol, the manner in which we approach the healing protocol to match that, right? Or else we're moving in the other
Yes.
direction. We're creating more of that stress. So I think that's a really big one that I try to keep articulating in different ways, that the manner in which we heal matters more than the modalities.
Oh, yes. I completely agree with you. And, I think that even for myself, what I notice, and maybe you notice this as well, at different seasons of my
Mhm,
healing, I use different like different
mhm,
resources. And
mhm.
that's okay too, because again, we want to mirror the healthy nervous system when it comes to our practice. Flexibility, right? Kind of, maybe even bring in some nuance, bring in something variety, things that maybe today this is what I'm feeling like. So bringing in that intuition, right? What feels aligned? What
Yes.
resonates today? It doesn't have to look like the same thing. In fact, it
Mhm,
shouldn't look like the same
mhm.
thing, for years on end, because you're evolving as you're healing, and so
Mhm,
should your practice, so should your resources. And I think that, like, you made a really beautiful point, right? It's the approach that
mhm.
matters more. It's like, well, why am I doing this? Am I trying to fix it? Am I, like, forcibly trying to fix? Am I trying to get rid of? Right? Am I rejecting my current reality? Right? Or am I bringing in supports that are allowing me to be with what's here?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
weaving in pockets of safety and moments of peace and glimmers and connection throughout my days, so that I'm healing as I'm living, so that
Yes.
I'm not so focused on the healing that I forget to live,
Right.
right?
And then it feels like a like, it feels sustainable, right? It's not like, "Okay, 6-month intensive sauna, binders, antibiotics, and, breath work." It's, "How am I showing up for my life in ways that's gonna continue leading me towards regeneration and health," in a as a side effect of living the way that I think we are meant to, right? I don't think anyone, our grandparents would probably be like, rolling their eyes at some of us, just thinking of the protocols that are packaged as healing
Yeah.
versus yeah, really showing up for life in ways that, I know you talk about this a lot, but I do think another missing ingredient is like that sense of purpose, that sense of
Mm.
connection, a sense of playfulness,
Yes.
forget the, liposomal vitamin C and glutathione, whatever it is that comes in a bottle. Like, if we can connect with the purpose and the play and moments of pleasure and really, help someone out, we're not so focused on our symptoms. We do something nice for someone else, and then, oh, actually, as a side effect, we feel better. There's some really cool healing that happens just naturally,
Yeah.
which, and I love thinking about that too, because oftentimes it's free. It's
Yes.
not more rigidity, it's actually reconnecting with life again. So,
Oh, I
yeah,
love
things.
that. And I wanted to ask you about belief work. So I wanted to quickly, touch on beliefs because EFT tapping was a big part of my journey. And I
Mhm.
know it was a big part of yours. And I
Yes.
know that that's something that you do. You think you have a membership, a tapping membership as well. And it's something you work on with all your clients. So tell us a little bit about EFT tapping and for those who aren't familiar and how it would support the healing journey.
Yeah, I was skeptical at first. When I first heard about another mind body tool, I was at the place in my journey where I'm like, "Oh gosh, another one of these things." Like, I think I still wanted a protocol. I still wanted like heavy duty antibiotic. I wanted something that felt more powerful. And it
Yeah.
was only through experience that I realized, "Oh, wow, this is incredibly powerful," because what EFT, or the emotional freedom technique, allows us to do is to actually, it's almost like uncoupling the panic, the fear, the uh-oh from whatever story, whatever symptom, whatever memory, whatever belief feels like it's keeping the body in that kind of stress, panic
Yeah.
state. And it helps us process it in a way that I feel like talk therapy doesn't really do. I've heard a lot of clients have mentioned EMDR feels very similar, and they,
It does, I've done it before. It's
yeah,
definitely similar, but I
yep.
prefer tapping.
Same, and I experienced EMDR and didn't quite get the benefit I needed, maybe a
Same.
5% improvement where I felt less troubled by certain memories or certain
Yeah.
experiences, but
Yes.
not in the way that feels like it actually allowed them to resolve, like a processing, like an exhale of, "Okay, this happened. Yes, that was
Yes.
hard, and now I can move forward because I'm not hooked by it anymore." So, to sum it up in the way that I experience it, it's almost like unhooking the trauma, the pain, the unexpected events, the symptoms, the diagnoses, all the things that happen to us in life as humans, but unhooking the panic and the fear so that we can, yes, surrender, but then open up space to step into what's next. Who do we want to be in spite of this? How do
Yes.
we want to show up for life regardless of this or because of this? Like, what wisdom, what gold can we take from this experience and then bring it with us forward, if we don't have to be living in the, yeah, and the painful part of, "This happened to me, this is who I am, bad things always happen to me, I'm gonna be sick for the rest of my life, there's always been something wrong with me." All of those beliefs, which there might be, yes, a nugget of truth in them because your brain has learned to live that way and to gather data points to affirm that, but it doesn't feel like the whole story. It's more of the wounded part. That's their perspective.
I
The
call them stories of survival, the
stories of
beliefs.
survival, that's the
Yeah,
perfect
right?
way of
Because
saying it.
ah,
That's exactly it, yes. So it's almost we honor those stories, we make space for them, we celebrate the fact that, yes, they allowed for survival, yes, they served a purpose when life was hard, and we are not meant to live in them forever. So it's almost like we
yes.
we thank them, we give them the airtime that they need. There's a lot of overlap with parts work, which is I like to
Yes.
combine with tapping. And then, yes, move forward, almost like we're in the driver's seat again, and the all of our little parts, our stories of survival are, in the back seat or in a caravan behind us, but we're the one that's directing and guiding them. And that might mean pulling over and, talking to the part of you that's still really anxious, or the part that's grieving and heartbroken and feels like everything has been unfair and everything has been just, totally unjust. Our job is to be the one to comfort and speak to and love and tend to, not to fix, but to support. And yeah, I find so much beauty in hearing other people's stories too, and even just getting to know their parts and then seeing the
Yeah.
relief throughout a session, like And not to say that we need to use tapping. I know you've spoken about this to like, okay, let's shift, let's feel better,
Yeah.
hurry up and get out of the pain so that we can feel better. We can use it to, yes, absolutely shift as a side effect, but really the goal is to be with what is,
It's
to be
allowing,
with
right?
what is.
Another form of allowing,
Yep.
right?
It's
Yeah.
exposing without
Yep.
the fear. So, yeah, it's like a gentle, creative exposure therapy where then people feel firsthand, "Oh, this is who I can be without living out that story of survival anymore. This is who I could be, or this is how I could show up for life if I'm not spending 99% of my day researching my symptoms and, taking supplements and micromanaging my food and, trying to
Yeah.
control and manipulate." So, that's probably my favorite part of it. I mean, I experienced that myself, but to then see it in other people where it becomes a tool that they can then use when they need it, at the grocery store in the parking lot, or maybe
Yeah.
taking a little break from whatever is happening in their day, doing a little bit of tapping in the bathroom to just allow, create space, and then to ask. I mean, the question I always ask is like, okay, well, if you don't have to be stuck here, because none of us are meant to be stuck in these stories of survival, then where would you like to be? And that starts to bring in the creative process of, oh, I've got options. We don't have to be
Yes.
stuck in the pain forever. We want to honor it and feel it, and then move forward.
Yeah, I love that, right? So that's really why I really love, belief work in general, tapping, but also I find parts work is also an evolution of those beliefs, right? Because you're hearing right from the parts. So I also weave them together. And again, it is really just meeting them. You're meeting
Mhm.
the stories. You're not redirecting, forcibly trying to change them immediately. But as you meet them, things start to evolve.
Yeah.
Right? And that's
Yep.
the magic right there, and then when you can ask like, "Well, what do you wanna believe instead?"
Mhm.
What's the story? What is your story? And, that curiosity, the wonder, the playfulness, and I always kinda connect it to visualization as well at the end. Like, I always kinda bring in a little bit of visual, right? Like, well, if you embodied all these beliefs, what would that look like? How would that feel? And that's powerful, and, I love that you're doing this work and again, bringing options to people. We're here telling you that there isn't just one way to heal. It's just not isn't just one way to do this. There are many pathways to safety and
Mhm.
evolution and healing, and, we're really trying to reflect that back to you, right? Because I know that there's a lot of, people in the community. We all have supports. We all support our clients in different ways, and, there are a lot of people in the community who, maybe don't have the same intentions as a beautiful soul like Theresa and all the other people on my channel, and so we're honoring that. We are not trying to, sell something from a place of fear, right, or promote something with that fear because that is the problem. That's part of the problem,
Yeah.
right? So, I know you see it too.
Oh my
Like
gosh. Well, and I'll even add, like, even without tapping, even without
yeah.
amazing nutrition, even without the perfect home, even without the perfect environment, the body is still trying to heal. So I know some
Yeah.
people are like, like I don't have access to these tools. I don't have
Yes.
time. No big deal. We'll work with what you have,
Yeah.
and it's allowed to be simple. And your body's, whether you believe it or not, your body is moving you in that direction. So it's a matter of
Yes.
creating the
Yeah.
space and letting the time do a lot of the work too.
Yeah, and borrowing belief from people like us, right? Like, literally just borrowing our belief. I know how many people have just watched recovery stories and, really, really felt that sense of safety starting to evolve, that curiosity. So there are yeah, you're right when you say is the body knows how to heal when we get out of its way, right? Like, it's already in process, and we can begin to trust that. So, I wanted to I asked, well, my guest this final question. If you were to, talk or leave a message, a hope rope, let's say, to someone who's listening or watching, and, they're struggling, they're maybe where you were, where it's just, they're trying to find the fix, and they're just really, really suffering, and you could give them a hope rope, what would you tell them?
Oh, wow, that's a good one. I in in the simplest way, I would say, you're allowed to be in this stage. This isn't the end of your story. Like, I really do see it as these chapters in our lives, and in those moments of despair and hopelessness, like, where we do feel like we're at rock bottom for the second, third, fourth time, the story isn't over yet. So, I mean, it's hard. I know in those moments, it feels like you can't even hear the comfort sometimes. It's like, "Well, I know you're saying this is gonna pass, but right now, like, I'm losing it. I don't know how much longer I can survive like this." But I would just keep planting the seed of, "Hey, you're not wrong for being here. You're not wrong for being in this challenging state right now, and life will surprise you whether you believe it or not." And,
Mm.
that can I there were moments where people would say similar things to me, and it would create rage in me, Vanessa. I'm like, "How dare you? You don't know how sick I am. This is hopeless." But now, only after the fact, it's integrated to, "Okay, they were right," because nothing lasts. Everything's always changing. We are evolving. Even if it feels like
Mm.
we're in the same storm that we were in a couple of years ago, our bodies and having same or worse symptoms than it did several years ago. We are always evolving, which means we're able to bring new perspectives and new tools. And I'd maybe add that, this experience is actually here to help you. It really is here to help you grow. And even when it doesn't feel like that, there is something like that seed that's coming to the surface because of this experience. And you have no idea who you're going to help or inspire because of what you're going through right now. It's almost like, thanks for taking one for the team, and you'll be able to give it back, and it will be worth it. I think it's like you said, nothing's ever wasted. It's all worth it. Um, I mean, I have a lot to say, but maybe the
Yeah, I'm
the
sure that could be another episode, right? Like
yeah.
a whole
Yeah.
So, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can find me at livingrootswellness.com or Instagram. I'm very active at Living Roots Wellness. And then my tapping, brain, breath, somatic work is at Tapping with Tea, the website or the app, whichever you prefer to use.
Awesome. All right, I'll have all those details listed below in the caption. Teresa, it was an absolute pleasure, and I really appreciate you coming on. I really,
Likewise.
really, really love you and all that
Oh,
you share with our community.
likewise, Vanessa. Thanks so much. This was such a joy today.